Hello and welcome to a presentation on Bellevue College's competency-based online pilot project. My name is Suzanne Marks and I'll be your host. WGU Western Governors University has been successfully doing competency-based education, or CBE, for 15 years. They received a grant from the Gates Foundation to train 10 community colleges across the U.S. how to implement CBE. 4 of those colleges are in Washington: Bellevue, Spokane Falls, Edmonds, and Columbia Basin. The criteria for the grant required that projects be online, technology related, a certificate or a degree, and delivered in a CBE format. Bellevue and Spokane Falls selected certificates in business tech. Edmonds and Columbia Basin selected certificates in network security. Many of you already know what competency-based education is, but I think it's worth repeating how Jean Floten, Chancellor of WGU Washington, talks about it. She says competency-based education is an outcomes-based approach to education, where the emphasis is on what graduates know and can do rather than what goes into the curriculum. With a competency-based approach, students advance when they have demonstrated mastery of a competency, which is defined as a combination of skills, abilities, and knowledge needed to perform a task in a specific context. And finally, mastery is the sole determinant of progress, which means that delivery options multiply and expand, since any instructional method or instructional provider that can move a student towards mastery is theoretically acceptable. A simple yet powerful visual of the competency-based approach is shown here by the National Post-Secondary Education Cooperative. Now that we've heard from educators about CBE, let's take a look at a layman's definition of CBE. Why is competency-based education such a hot topic now? It's been around for a while, so why is it so popular now? Perhaps Thomas Friedman, who writes in the New York Times, can shed some light on the subject. He writes, "Institutions must move from a model of time served to a model of stuff learned. Because increasingly the world does not care what you know. Everything is on Google. You can Google it. The world only cares and will pay for what you can do with what you know, and therefore it will not pay for a C+ in chemistry just because your state college considers that a passing grade and was willing to give you a diploma that says so. We're moving to a more competency-based world where they will be less interested in how you acquired the competency, whether it was in an online course, at a 4-year college, or in a company-administered class, and more demand will be put on how to prove that you have mastered the competency. So the first step in our pilot project was to select a certificate. Along with the grant criteria, our criteria in selecting a certificate was we wanted an existing certificate, not a brand new one. We wanted one that was popular and high demand, a certificate that would appeal to a broad audience and included industry certification. Our business software specialist certificate met this criteria. The next step in our pilot project was to identify the certificate outcomes. What we learned was, if you don't assess it, you can't count it as an outcome. Our first surprise was how many certificate outcomes we had on the books for the Business Software Specialist certificate. Way too many. So we started fresh. We selected the following 3 certificate outcomes. Utilize intermediate to advanced software features in industry standard software to solve a business problem. Develop and manage small business websites using industry standard software. And gain Microsoft Office Specialist Core certification. Originally, we had 4 outcomes. We also had, as number 4, assist others with troubleshooting software features. But we were not assessing this 4th customer service technical support outcome, so we decided to drop it. If you don't assess it, you cannot claim it as an outcome, and this was our first aha in the CBE process. We also identified a class in the certificate that was redundant, covering the same competencies. Students were taking an Office intro course and then taking the Office comprehensive course. So, for example, they would cover the same 3 chapters of Excel in the intro course, and then would cover those same 3 first chapters of Excel in the comprehensive course. Finding duplicate competencies was our second aha in the CBE process. So we changed out the Office intro course and added a web intro course instead. This gave the students more web skills rather than going over the same territory and Office skills twice. Next, we turned our attention to the course outcomes and made sure they tied to the certificate outcomes. Here you see an example of a word class. Notice the last outcome, number 6, says utilize intermediate to advanced software features to solve a business problem, and it ties to 2 of the certificate outcomes. The Business Software Certificate the Business Software Specialist Certificate is 32 credits and consists of 8 courses. Those courses are 1 orientation class, 5 courses offered that offer MOS certification, and MOS stands for Microsoft Office Specialist, and 2 web courses. On the right, you will see our recruiting panel card. Let me walk you through an overview of the card. On the first page at the bottom it says, gain a mastery of Microsoft Office Suite and earn 5 Microsoft certifications. Below that in white it lists the classes, Outlook, PowerPoint, Word, Excel, Access, Web Essentials, Web Page Authoring, and Intro to Online Learning, which is our orientation class. We wanted an eye-catching recruiting tool with the basics. And then we wanted to drive students to the website for the detailed information. We did not want a text-heavy document as our recruiting tool. So you can see that our theme is go at your own speed, with a car on the road analogy with its own speed limit sign. The Start Here sign says interested. To get started, go to, and then it lists our web address, which I have listed for you on the last slide of this presentation. Then as the car moves down the road, the sign says 100% online classes, real-world scenarios, which we use in our with our learning resources, guided by a navigator, course instructor, includes 5 Microsoft certifications, and finally at the top, at the end of the road, earn a Business Software Specialist certificate. Notice our tagline is add to your technology toolkit. Now who doesn't want to do that, right? The second page lists steps to getting started with our navigator contact information as well as our QR coded stop sign. How did we recruit and how many students did we get? We used traditional recruitment methods, panel cards, posters that matched the panel cards, drove students to our website, met with all college advisors in workforce, student services, and international student services. We placed an ad in the schedule, and we announced in all business tech online and on-ground classes. So when you begin a new program, our dean told us that you kind of hope for about 20 students as a general rule. Well, on day 2, we had 80 students enrolled. On day 3, we had 20 students on the wait list. On day 4, we had to cut off the enrollments for a bit. We ended up losing some of those folks because we had cut it off. And then on day 5, we hired a second navigator. We ended the first quarter with 87 students and started the second quarter already with 104 students on day 2. We have continuous enrollment through the 7th week, and we were able to convert about 2/3 of our inquiries to actual enrollments. Several people have asked me how we identify our CBO courses in the schedule, so I have listed the verbiage here. We use the term CBO, Competency-Based Online at Bellevue. And this is what it says in the schedule. Section CBO is a competency-based online class. Students participate in a self-paced online course with the support of a student navigator. Students will complete a pre-test to identify their strengths and weaknesses, allowing them to fast forward through course topics that they understand well. Once proven competent in all course topics, students receive credit and can move on. Instructor permission required. For more information, go to, and then it lists our web address. When the faculty converted the existing classes to a CBE format, it was a bit of a mind bender. The first thing we did was to strip out all the due dates because when you are working at your own speed, the only real due date you have is the last day of the quarter. There are no longer homework assignments. They become practice sessions. Students receive scored feedback on how they are doing in their practice sessions, but the practice sessions do not count toward their final grade. Only the final assessments count. So for example, in an Excel course, the final two assessments are the MOS certification exam and a comprehensive Excel final. We used the same business running case across all courses so that students can use it as a portfolio to show employers. So the students would create several documents for this business, Front Range Sports, and they would create a website for that company. They would create an Excel budget for that particular company. They would do a business intelligence PowerPoint, and so on. So how does a typical class work exactly? In simplest terms, the students come into the class and take a pretest to see what they know and what they don't know. Then they practice those areas they need to work on. Next, they take a post-test to see if they can achieve 80% competency or better. If not, they go back and practice. When they are ready, they take the final 2 or 3 assessments, the MOS certification exam and the business running case comprehensive final. The web classes do not have industry certifications, so we use other assessments for those courses. Since our goal is competency, there are only 3 grades, A, B, or F. You're either competent or you're not. We added new software tools to the CBO project. The first tool we added was Smarter Measure, an online and college readiness assessment. The navigators administer this assessment and discuss its results with the students. The navigators then determine if the CBO class is a fit for the student and issue an entry code for the course if it is. Smarter Measure measures 7 areas. Life factors such as how much time and resources do they have to give to their college studies, individual attributes such as persistence, procrastination, and time management, learning styles which show primary and secondary learning styles, reading rate and recall, reading online comprehension and reading rate which is different than reading from a book or from paper, technical competency, what computer and internet resources do they have, their technical knowledge, when it says download a file, do you know what that is, and then typing speed and accuracy, because if you're taking an online class, you're going to have to keyboard. Other software tools we added for this pilot were the Microsoft Office Specialist or MOS certification exams, G-Metrix MOS certification practice trainings and practice exams, and Pearson My IT Lab learning resources. Logistically, we had to add the MOS exams to the College English and Math Testing Center and add G-Metrix to the teaching labs and some computers in the open lab. How did our students do compared to the same regular classes? Well, overall, the CBO students had 7% more mastery of their subjects than the regular students. And in the office courses, 77% of the CBO students gained MOS certification. The 2 charts and list of statistics show you the details of these comparisons. We made 3 adjustments for the second quarter. Students asked for a self-pacing chart. For example, if I'm an intermediate user of Outlook, how many weeks should it take to complete this course? And I have a sample of that on the next slide for you. Secondly, we had a dog pile at the end of the quarter for the MOS testing. Even though the navigators and course instructors had been communicating weekly with the students, too many students left the MOS exam to the last minute. So we've added a progress report for more accountability, and again on the next slide you'll see a sample. Finally, we added a B grade competency option for students who could not pass the MOS exam but were able to score 80% on the G-Metrix exams. This was our first time administering MOS exams, and we found that some students had severe test anxiety and other problems. So we added the G-Metrix B grade option. Here are the samples of the self-pacing chart and the weekly progress report. The progress report is based on a tool used by WGU. So, how are we going to continue paying for our CBO courses? The grant and administration paid for the Smarter Measure, MOS exams, G-metrics, and Navigator costs. We plan to sustain the CBO program by creating a combination fee that will cover all costs that apply to a CBO course. We believe we'll be able to do this at a reasonable cost per class. Here are a few student testimonials. Students liked being able to work at their own pace, gaining MOS certification, and having both a course instructor and navigator to go to for help. We had many return customers second quarter. We had first quarter students already asking for summer and fall classes to be offered in the CBO format, along with them asking for additional courses to be converted to CBO format. We have been stunned at the response. And finally, my contact information is listed here for your convenience along with our CBO website. I hope you've enjoyed this presentation. Thank you.